Yes, people. Happy Saturday. Good morning. It's your boy Si, aka the Mancunian. Welcome to a Gunner Talk. Sorry guys, it's been another week past since I've managed to put any content up. It's just you guys know I've got a lot going on at the minute, a lot of hospital appointments and looking after my mum. So I've not got a ton of time at the minute, and I'm up and down between Manchester and the Newcastle. On a daily basis pretty much at the minute, which is not affording me much time to do anything else. But let's get on to the football side of things. As I've not been about much, obviously I've missed 4 pre-season games now. I've watched them, but I've not been able to talk about them. So what I'm going to do is sort of recap all 4 games and go through everybody that's played. Just give you my basic opinion on them, a couple of minutes on each. And then I'm going to do another separate video on all the other latest stuff that's going in and on and around the club at the moment, because obviously there's loads to talk about. So let's crack on with this one. We've had these 4 games now. We started off with the Cronker derby against Colorado Rapids. Nice 3-0 win, and we went a fully kids lineup there, which was a pleasant surprise for me. I really enjoyed watching that game. Possibly my favourite of all of them so far, to be honest, just because we got a real nice look at a lot of these kids that most of us haven't had much exposure to so far. Then we had the Bayern game, 2-1, another win, and a pretty tidy performance. Not looking great at the back, but everything else looked pretty good. Then Fiorentina, that lineup was, we went from sort of kids then all the way to sort of a senior lineup, possibly minus the likes of Willock. But it's probably our strongest lineup, that what we've got fit at the moment. Maybe Mustafi as well. You would say wouldn't be a first 11 shout. But then Fiorentina 3-0, and that was a sort of what you don't want to see at the back, and then everything you want to see in midfield going forward. Real mix, sort of the older what we don't like in defence, and then what we're looking forward to going forward of that. 3-0, another lovely result. And then the last one against Madrid, 2-2. Unlucky really to come away losing that on penalties. But they're a much improved side this year. So I thought that was a pretty tidy result, to be honest, because I was sort of wondering if we might get blown away a little bit by Bayern or Real in pre-season. So to come through them fairly unscathed for me was a massive positive. So I'm just going to run through everybody that's played so far, starting with goalkeeper, working away to strikers, and just a little quick brief analysis of each player. So Macy started in that first game in goal. A bit like in the Boreham Wood game for me, he doesn't look ready at all. His third choice this season, I don't mind it, but I'm hoping that there's another youth player further down the ranks that could possibly take that third spot off him. We look pretty settled, number 1 and 2, but after that it doesn't look great. And yeah, he looked very small and diminutive to me. He didn't look like he could command his box, especially against big grown hairy arse men in the Premier League. I think he'd be a rabbit in the headlights, to be honest. But he's not had a ton of time in pre-season, so we might see he could be better than what he showed in those, but I don't think he's going to get called on a lot this season, to be honest. So he's not one I'm going to spend a lot of time stressing or fretting about, wondering whether he's up to it or not. Martinez, my boy, Emi Martinez, looks really, really solid to me. I'm sure people might blame him for the goals against Madrid, but he made some very good saves for me. And he is somebody that's, he's a big lad, he's a big unit, wardrobe of a lad. And he looks like he's got very good command of his area. He doesn't look too bad with his feet either. And my big positive for him as a big lad goalkeeper is that he's agile. He can get down well. He's not like, watching, a mighty oak tree fall over and it takes a bit of time to creak over. He's down quick. He's a big cat of a lad for 6'6" or whatever he is, and he's one I'm really excited to see get some game time this year. I know a lot of you probably don't really care, but I'm someone who's been championing him for a couple of seasons, saying he was a much better option than Checa or Ospina, and I think that'll get proved this year, and I hope it gets proved, because having a really good backup goalkeeper to Leno isn't the worst thing in the world, and I'm really hoping he sort of all-turns him and gives him time in the Premier League, and if not, then I want to see him start every Europa League game and every Carabao Cup game minimum, and I think that'll be really good competition for Leno, as well as giving Leno a break. It's sort of a double-edged sword. It works both ways. So a really good positive for me from Martinez so far. Leno, the German wall. He's another one. I said this in a video a couple of months ago. Goalkeeper is one for me this year that I'm excited about, and that's not something I've said since the 90s. The last goalkeeper I enjoyed watching was Seaman. I know a lot of people love Jens Lehmann, but he wasn't one for me that ever. He was another Almunia for me. And I'll always say that he was the worst player in the Invincibles for me. I just didn't think he was much cop. That's just my opinion. I thought he was the weak link in that side. Not that there was any real massive weaknesses, but he was one for me. But Leno, massive improvement last season. And what we had, and I was looking back here and I was thinking, what would have happened last year if we hadn't have signed him? If we'd have just gone with Czech again? And my answer was 4th to 8th. Could have got Messi. Because he came up big for us, once he's running the side and he got acclimatised to the Prem, and playing with the lads in the back four, he was awesome last year for me, and I can only see him getting better again this year. He's more settled, in England and the Premier League. He'll be more settled now with the lads in defence, assuming that stays the way it is, personnel-wise. And now he is under genuine threat, in my opinion, for his position. So I can only see lots of positives from Martinez, and not just for Martinez, for Leno as well. And he's looked really tidy in pre-season. I can't help but draw a comparison when I watch him play to Peter Schmeichel. He's got the Schmeichel about him. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the blonde hair and maybe I'm being silly, but he's just something like a rowdy, shouty German that just won't take any shit. It's something I really like about him, and I think he's going to be a beast this year, and I think he'll save us plenty of points again. I don't see why that'll change, and if anything, I can see his number is improving, and he deserves some more clean sheets this year because we let him down last year. For some of his, he put in some 9 and 10 out of 10 performances last year and still ended up sort of picking the ball out of the net a couple of times in those games. Excuse me. So we owe him better than what he's had so far. So he's someone who I'm definitely looking forward to watching this year. So that's the goalkeepers. Like I say, it looks pretty settled and sorted for me. And like I say, it's not one I'm going to be really paying much attention to for the rest of the season now. I'll just be enjoying it. And watching these lads, help the team out in a big way. So we get to the defenders. Good old Carl Jenkinson. I can't help but watching this pre-season thinking, is this sort of the 28th coming of Carl Jenkinson? Looking at the fact that Hector won't be fit, I don't see us going out and getting a right back anytime soon. Not this season anyway, even on loan. So we're going to go with an internal solution. Possibly Ainsley, Callum, Mustafi, Jenko. There's a few that can play there, but as an out-and-out right back, Jenkinson is the obvious one for me. We know he's never going to be a world beater. We know that for a lot of people he probably still shouldn't be at the club. Like I always say, if there was some sort of nuclear holocaust, the only things that would survive are cockroaches and Carl Jenkinson. And I'm looking at him going, for the money that we'd get for him selling him, is it worth just keeping him around? We might get 3 to 5 million for him. I think because he's a genuine right back, we're better off just keeping him. Or even just till Christmas, and then if he plays quite well until Hector comes back, it could boost his his transfer fee a little bit. Maybe bump it up to 7.5 million, going on for 10. If he performs well, and like I say, although unspectacular, and he got his arse handed to him by Marcelo, but that's one of the best left backs there is. He's not going to come up against that quality of opposition every week in the Prem. And he'll do a job. Like I say, he's not going to blow your mind, but he's a capable deputy. You're going to get a 6 out of 10 from him, I think. So he's one that I've been looking at thinking, weighing up the pros and cons of getting rid of him or keeping him, and I think keeping him is probably the best thing to do. But that's probably mainly based around my love for Ainsley, and that I don't want to see him at right back anymore. Let's get on to Ainsley. It's been the real one of the real downsides of the pre-season for me. Like I say, you guys know I love Ainsley, and I think he deserves better treatment than what he's had. A bit like Eddie last year, where he's took one for the team rather than his own personal needs and wants, and we should repay him for that. And I was really hoping this pre-season, because we had sort of Mustafi can play right back, Jenkinson can play right back, Chambers can play right back, that he would play Ainsley where he wants. And like I say, for me, he deserves a chance to, Emery should have been saying to him, thanks for the work you gave us last year at right back. Right, where do you want to play this year? What do you think is your ideal position? You've earned a goal there, so let's try it in pre-season. And I was heartbroken to see him start at right back, because I thought, right, well, the other options at the club are here, and he's still picking him as right back, which says to me he will be our starting right back for the start of the season. So I found that really disappointing. And he's looked really lively in pre-season. We know full well he's not a right back, so we are going to get the odd calamity. Mistake, gets caught napping. That's going to happen because he's not a right back. He's not used to that role. There's other players that make those same mistakes in their actual position, which is why I give Ainsley a ride. And I'll be doing the same again if he keeps getting played at right back. I will not be blaming him for anything. It's like somebody asking me to be a nuclear physicist. I have no idea. I'll have a go at it, but I probably won't be great at it. There'll be some things that I might get away with and wing, but on the whole, you'll just be looking going, this guy isn't a nuclear physicist. And that's how I feel a little bit about Ainsley. It's just I don't want people to get on his back and abuse him because he's being played out of position, and he's someone I fully believe is a massive part of the squad and the future of the club. We should be, leaning on him a bit more and giving him a go where he wants and deserves. So all I can hope for is that once Hector comes back, it then frees him up, and especially if we keep Jenko as a backup right back, in my thinking, then we might get to see Ainsley in the middle of the park. But that's looking pretty competitive at the minute. Want to get onto those guys. So it's up in the air at the minute, but I expect another big season from him. I think he was one of our most important players last year. I know a lot of you will laugh, but like I say, look at internal solutions last year. And if we didn't have Ainsley Maitland-Niles last season, who would we have played at right back? Think about that. Who would have played, and whether you'd have been more upset at them playing there than Ainsley, and whether you'd have given more stick. And in my opinion, you'd have lost the plot over whoever they'd have played there. Like I kept saying, he's a midfielder. Pick another midfielder in our squad and play him at right back week in and week out, and tell me if they'd perform as well as Ainsley did, because not in a million years for me. So it's big thumbs up for Ainsley for me, and another season of growth, and I'm looking excited to, really excited to watch him play. Chambers, you guys know I thought he was coming back as a Torreira backup, and a perfect foil for him when he needs a rest or in cup games. We play Chambers in the middle of the park. Obviously because of our need for a centre back, he's put him back there, and he looks solid. Callum is someone who I'm a fan of, and I hope he can do bits for the club. And although I was quite set on him being a central defensive mid, I'm not upset at him being a centre back, because it's better than the alternatives. And although I hate that phrase of, well, it's better than what we've got, it's better than what we've got, and in defence we need that. And you're looking at the start of the season, I thought it was interesting he made him captain in that first game. The senior head in that lineup. I suppose it's not really a shock considering what that lineup is. The first game, it's probably between him and Jenkinson, who was captain. But I like the fact that he picked him as captain, and he looked commanding. Callum's someone who I'm sure a lot of people have written off already this pre-season, saying, well, he's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. But what you've got to remember with Callum is he's like a couple of other players that will be in the squad this year, that he's had no time with Unai Emery so far. You've got to remember he was away from the club last season, so while everyone else got used to Unai, his ways of doing things and his methods, Callum didn't get that luxury. He's coming back now in a position that he didn't play in all of last season, and just all of these culminated together. He's got a tricky job on his hands in pre-season to get up to speed with the rest of them. So he's at a disadvantage, and for me, although at a disadvantage, he's looked good. Not mind-blowingly good, but he's looked solid enough. And you look at what we've got now for the start of the season, unless somebody comes in, you've got to probably say that him and Socrates are our starting centre-back pair until Holding's fit. And then maybe, a mixture of those three. Like I say, if somebody else doesn't come in, Socrates and Chambers, or Socrates and Holding, or Holding and Chambers, could work out quite well for us. I know it didn't go great last time when we had Holding and Chambers as a centre-back pairing, but these guys are a lot further down the line than they were now, a lot more mature and a lot more ready for it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. You guys know I told you that the club were open to getting rid of him, which disappointed me, but I don't think they've got that luxury anymore now. So it's going to be, he's another one I'm really intrigued to see what he's capable of this year, and I do think it is if he gets chances this year, that'll be it for him. If he doesn't perform, I can't see how he stays at the club. Although I've said that about a lot of other players, and they've still managed to cling on in because we just can't find any suitors. I'm not sure that would be the case for Chambers. I think if we, made it openly aware that we were happy to take 20 million for him, I think somebody would come in and snap our hand off. But he's somebody that I definitely think's ready, just given a little bit more time, and can be a big part of our squad this year. And I hope that's the case. I really do, because he's someone I've got a lot of time for. Zesh Medley. I wasn't impressed with him as the senior player in the Boreham Wood friendly. He looked lost, which really disappointed me, because he's someone that I have a lot of time for again. But he looked a bit more in the mix in these proper pre-season games. He's such a big lad. He's really inexperienced, but he's getting to that age now where he needs to get the experience. So whether he goes out on loan or not, I don't know. For me, I'd much rather see him get game time than Mustafa. That's just my personal opinion. But, is Zesh Medley what a lot of you guys want? This is how I've been looking at a lot of pre-season, where, solutions to problems that I believe the club have might already be at the club. It's just going to be, we're going to have to bite the bullet and be ballsy and be brave and just give them a go. And we know that it's not going to be great every week, but it could be a lot better than what we've been watching, and I think that's what a lot of people are realising this pre-season. I had the debate a lot last year when I was saying just swap Ainsley Maitland-Niles for Xhaka, give Mavropanos a go instead of Mustafa, Mkhitaryan, let Saka have a go or whatever, and people laughed at me going, well, they could be a lot worse. And what I kept saying to people is, yeah, you're right, they could be a lot worse, but the other thing is, they could be a lot better. The players we were watching, we know have plateaued and they're at their level, and that is as good as it gets. They're not going to improve. Whereas some of these kids are coming in, performing as well, and we know there's loads of room for growth. So I'm all over Project Youth at the minute, and I have been for a couple of years, saying, somebody take me literally when I say scrap it and just start with all the youth players, just play the under-23s. I don't mean that literally, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them that, when some of the when some of the senior pros were letting us down last year, they should have brought these lads in and shown them up and gone, look lads, this is the level that's required. This is the hunger, the fight, the desire that we want from you lot. And until you start showing it, this kid takes your spot. And that shame, the embarrassment of being replaced, a bit like Ozil in the Europa League final, getting subbed off at that point for Joe Willett, that must have crushed his self-esteem a little bit and made him take a long hard look at himself and go, fuck, I need to step up. So maybe Medley's one of those guys this year. I'd be quite happy to see him go out on loan, just because I don't see us getting rid of some of the other centre-backs, the more senior ones. And he's someone who I don't see much point in keeping him as sort of a 6-7 choice centre-back and getting 2 or 3 games this year. It's a big year, he's 19, it's a big year for him. And like I say, a lot of you are calling out for a lefty centre-back. Well, here's one, he's pretty quick for his size. He's another one, he's a wardrobe of a kid. He's 6'6" or 6'7" or whatever it is. So maybe he's one for the future, maybe not this year, but the season after. So I quite happily see him go out on a loan to the decent Championship side or top of League One side, and get week in, week out games. Like I say, not seeing a ton of him in this pre-season, but I think he's someone, if we put a bit of time into him, could come up trumps for us. So that's Medley. Poor old Skodran. I don't want to talk about it for too long. We all know that he was the one, I think all of us universally could have said this year, it's got to go. There's no way this good guy should remain at the club. And watching him pre-season, it's more of the same old, can't be trusted. Brain farts, every 5 minutes, just totally unreliable. I got a shock when it was him and Chambers and he moved him to left centre-back, and the commentator said he's never played there in his entire career. He has never played left centre-back, and I thought, although it's a bit more specialised, there's no way a guy who's a World Cup winner with his experience has never played there and isn't capable of it. It's embarrassing, in my opinion. He's just such a banter player now that just for everybody's pride and, even for the guy himself, he's got to go. And I find it pretty disgusting that we've not managed to, we obviously must be holding out for a fee that's completely unachievable, because for me, he's someone that just anything north of $7.5 million we should have took and just cut our losses, because he's now at a point for me. I don't think it helps the way the fans feel, but you can't blame us all for feeling the way we do towards him, that I don't even think you could call him a half decent squad player anymore or a good bench player, because for me, if I don't trust him starting, then I don't trust him off the bench either. I just don't trust the guy. I don't see how you can compartmentalise that at all. There's just no trust. So I'll be really disappointed if he's still here come the start of the season, because I don't know in what games I would want to see him starting. I wouldn't trust him against a Ludogorets or a Carrier Bag or team. I just would not trust him. It's just a tricky one, because I don't see how we're going to get rid of him now, like I say, because I think we're asking a completely unrealistic number. So it's just more of the same from him. And like I say, I think we're all going to be sort of watching like this in any games that he plays in, because that's just the nature of the bloke now. He's a calamity on legs, isn't he? So yeah, not a positive for me. Socrates. Well, he's our one senior centre back, isn't he, guys? That's not a great situation, but you can see that as maybe a positive depending on how you rate Koscielny and Mustafi. But we're going to need a massive season out of him. There's no two ways about that. He's going to be our one mainstay in the defence throughout the year if he can stay fit. Which he hasn't had many problems with so far. So hopefully we can get. He needs to play 80-90% of the Premier League season for me for us to stand any chance of top four. And he's looked really committed. He's looked quite lively for me in pre-season. I mean, I'm not going to get too bogged down in the sending off against Real Madrid, because I thought they were two very harsh yellows, really. Or you could say they were a yellow, but then to give the second one for a sending off, in a pre-season friendly, I thought was madness. Totally not for me deserving. Maybe if it was a build-up of fouls and that was the fourth or fifth one, you'd give him a yellow. But just as a one-off incident and then as a second yellow to send it, I thought was crackers. So I'm not going to hammer him for that. He is a little bit capable of that switching off, and he gets a bit caught up in the moment. But I saw a lot of people overreacting and going, we can't trust him, he's another Mustafi. Come on, guys, that's really unfair. You might not have 100% trust in him, but you've got to have 60% trust. Mustafi we have 0 in. To compare the two, I thought was really ridiculous from some people. And he's one you're going to have to get behind, because he's going to be massive for us this year. And I'm quite happy to see him in a partnership with Chambers or Holding until Holding's fit. And then maybe it could be Holding and Chambers, but I'd much rather see Socrates next to one of those two. And I think he's going to have a big season, I really do. Next one, Thompson. It's a little cheeky surprise for me in this pre-season, because he's not someone who's really been on my radar, although I watch quite a bit of the under-23s. He doesn't look ready for me. But it's interesting that we have got players in the wing-back positions at the club that do look quite decent. And he's one for me. I don't expect to really see him in and around the first team this year. He was one that I think was just brought in to get used to the culture of the first team setup, rather than actually looking at making him a part of it. And in a position where we're looking to possibly bring in a signing, and we've already got 2 senior pros there, I just don't see there's any legs in him getting a chance there. And he's one that I look forward to. He's one maybe I think under 23s he's beneath him now, and he needs a championship or a League One loan where he plays regularly, and he's someone that I would look forward to keeping an eye on if he does. Nacho, I've been telling you guys, I don't want to bang on about certain players, which I'm going to end up doing through this, but I've been saying, I always thought he was average when we signed him. I don't think he's ever changed from average. And he's in the decline, big style now in my opinion, and a lot of you guys disagreed with me when I said he's the one we should have just released and just let him go. He's not going to bring in much money. I just don't see any value in playing him. It's like Mustafi now. I just think you're just asking for trouble. Any time he starts, he cannot be relied upon. His legs have gone. Positionally, he's all over the place. I just find it. He's just another one that embarrasses me every time I see his name in the lineup. And for me, we've got to try and chip this window because I don't like the idea of us feeling we have to lean on him this coming season because we're paying him wages. It's like, well, we're paying him, so let's play him. I don't like that at all. And like I say, he's someone for me that's looked really out of his depth again in pre-season and just passed it. The ship sails for me with him, and for me it did a couple of years ago. I don't really understand, apart from being a senior pro and being here for a while, why we keep relying on him when we know he can't be trusted. But there you go. Kolasinac, pretty similar comments really. I prefer him of the two because I think he brings a lot more going forward. And he's not that much worse defensively. I know a lot of people say Nacho's a much better defender. He's not. They're both 3 out of 10 defenders. You could maybe mark Nacho up as a 3.5, but he ain't a 4. And if you're both going to be shit at defence, well, at least you better be doing something going forward. And Kolasinac actually does that, so he's the one I would keep, to be honest. He costs us nothing. We'll make money when we come to selling, no matter what. I think there's a lot more value in keeping Kolasinac around. And he's not been terrible pre-season. Yes, he's done the same things where he switches off in a back four. We know it doesn't suit him massively. But he does bring something that Nacho doesn't going forward. At least if he can help us score 3 in a game where we do concede 2, at least we still come out with 3 points. So that's the only real positive of why I would pick him over Nacho. But we need a left back, don't we, guys? We all know that we need a left back. Got to come in this year. I'm going to talk about transfers in my other video, but that's a position where we've got to. It's just as crucial for me as a centre midfielder and possibly a starting winger and a centre back for this year. But I'll get into that in my other video. Midfield. This is excuse me. Defence might not have been too exciting, but midfield has been fantastic. Some real surprises in there for me in this pre-season that I've absolutely loved. So let's go on with it. Ollie Inca. He's my new boy. Ollie Inca is my new boy. I really enjoyed watching him last year in the youth stuff. And he's another one that I didn't think would even get a look in this pre-season. And again, similar to my comments of Thompson, he's not someone who I see being part of the first team squad this year. I think for him, again, it was more of a chance for him to get a feel of what the first team setup's like and getting involved in first team training and stuff. But wow, what a player. I'm a bit fixated on a sort of a tackling box-to-box midfielder with, that's athletic and energetic, and that's what I believe our midfield needs. A Vieira type, a Diaby type, and I've been watching Ollie Inca going, is this another one where, I've always been looking outside the club for that type of player because I didn't really think we had one in the club. Because it's hard to gauge these kids off youth games. And then, although it's pre-season, he's not looked out of his depth at all. And he's one that I'm going, next season, I could easily see him being a part of the first team setup. And his work rate, he's got a serious amount of pace for a box-to-box midfielder. He can tackle a bit. He's got some lovely passing. And he took that goal well as well. He's got all-round attributes to his game, which is something that a lot of our midfielders don't. So he is one that I'm going to be really keeping a close eye on this year. If he goes out on loan, I've got a feeling he might sort of stay in and around the under-23s, and we might ask him, to step into the first team squad when it comes to the Carabao Cup and the Europa League games possibly. But he's one that I've got really excited over and gone, whoo, yes, lad. Like I say, not to run out of superlatives, but midfield's gone from sort of really barren and not looking great, and people getting bogged down on, Rambo leaving for free and Santi going, and you look at some of these kids and you go, we might not even feel it in another year's time, and that's the way I'm looking to lean at the moment. Burton, another one. I've loved that little partnership between the two. It's not something I expected to see at all. And for him to put it out there in a couple of games in this pre-season, sort of a lesser game and then a bigger game and more of a test. They came through it with flying colours for me. Sort of a Diaby Cazorla pairing, sort of, a big man, little man matchup. And Burton, he's one that's very diminutive, a little fella, and that his size put me off the position that he'll play in, just a deep lying playmaker sort of position. I thought just off his size he's going to struggle. Very much not the case. Very much like Torreira in that he's a very tenacious small player, and he works it to his advantage where a shoulder barred 50-50, they're resting on his head and he's under it, and he works his shape and his size to his to buy easy free kicks and buy himself out of trouble. And he's someone that wasn't on my radar at all. Olayinka was a little bit, Burton not at all. These are two that I was looking at, with a couple of other young lads we've got, and not for this season, but for next season, the season after. And I'm looking and I'm going, Willock, Torreira, Ainsley, Guendouzi, Iwobi, down the middle, Olayinka, Burton. All of a sudden, the midfield's gone from really shit, and God, we're going to have to rely on Xhaka week in, week out to. We could switch in and out a lot of players now all of a sudden, like say in another year or two's time, where, horses for courses in certain games, we could play certain players that match them up better and have a real mixture of youth. And like I say, these two lads, I'm really excited for the future with them. If we can keep them both and keep them happy. And like I say, Burton for me, he's a sort of lovely little blend of Santi and Cesc. He's that, he just sort of moves around nicely, quite graceful, and then wins a sort of tenacious tackle, and then he's very calm on the ball, and he's like Guendouzi for me, where he's always asking for it, he's always keen for the ball, he doesn't shy away and sort of hide, and you can just get a 6 out of 10 by just taking the easy passes and nudging him about. He puts himself in situations where he has to perform, and I'm like I say, these two lads I've been really excited about, real big positives of pre-season for me, without getting too carried away. Next one, Xhaka. He's another one like Mustafi. I don't want to keep flogging the arse. He's just not good enough for me. And in pre-season you're seeing it already. The same stupid, clumsy mistakes. And I say to you guys, his only positive is he can spray the ball around nice under no pressure. Well, now he's even starting to give the ball away under no pressure, and that was his only one positive he still had for me. I know a lot of you guys think I overreact, but these excuses that people give me, well, he's better than what we had. Look at last year what we had. We had Mohamed fucking El Nene and a 19-year-old from French League 2 as his competition. Well, no shit, Sherlock, he should be better than those guys. He's a seasoned pro, he's a captain of his national side. If he can't outperform Mohamed fucking El Nene and a 19-year-old that's coming from French League 2, then we should just release the guy. He barely just about outperformed those two. He's a tricky one because looking back at him and Guendouzi, I would say Xhaka's possibly more important but not more influential. We leaned on Guendouzi way more for me last year than we did Xhaka. Xhaka was just sort of a mainstay that you get away with. And he's one for me I'm really excited because I think he's under massive pressure and I think he's going to get shown up this year. Between some of these young lads, Ceballos coming in, which I'll talk about in the other video, but Ceballos, Willock, Guendouzi, I think he's massively under the cosh for his position, and I think he's going to get found out this year. I think as soon as he makes a fuck up, he's going to be out of the side, and a young kid will come in and he'll never get his spot back. That's how I feel. I'm that confident of his lack of ability that he's just going to show himself up this year, and I think he'll prove that he's a bit of a dead footballer. And like I say, you guys that defend him, I don't know what it's based on. Somebody pulled me again the other day and said, oh, well, you only think he's shit because of that penalty against Brighton. And that's not the reason why. I keep telling people I don't like the guy. And I said, look at the North London derby. When somebody went to me, my captain, you're going to be sick next year when this guy's captain. And I went, if you think that's a win, that you get one over me as this guy as captain, we're all losers and you're not realising it. Him as captain, we all turn out to be losers in that situation. And my biggest gripe with him is, like I say, don't look at the Brighton game, look at the North London derby. This guy's your captain, this guy's your leader. 10 minutes in, he should have been off. He got very lucky. He put in a stupid, reckless two-footed tackle from behind. I can't remember if it was on Son or Sissoko. And it was ridiculous. And it's 10 minutes into our biggest game of the season. Not just in terms of points, but in terms of rival. And if we had VAR last year, I know some of you are going to say if buts and maybes, but if VAR would have been in last year, we'd have been down to 10 men in the North London derby 10 minutes in, and this guy you think is captain material, if he is captain material, should see a situation like that and go, right, I'm the guy that everybody's looking at to steady the ship, and he can't. He's not capable. Look at this pre-season. He should be bossing games from what you lot tell me. Again, a lot of you say to me, well, he's a big part of the way we play in defence of him. But then you openly admit that our football was shit last year in the main. And you don't put 2 and 2 together, that all of the football goes through him as our deep-lying playmaker, and the football's shit, and you can't put the two together and realise it's his fault. And it's why I say our attacking football was dead last year, because we win the ball in defence, we instantly look to give it to Granit Xhaka, and if a pass isn't on, he goes backwards, because he cannot burst with a burst of pace and break the lines. He doesn't have it in his locker. He's a one-trick pony for me. He's slow. He's not particularly intelligent, in my opinion, footballing wise. He could be a real brain box off the pitch, but on it, he's got an head full of rocks for me. Literally a head full of granite. And he's just someone I'm really disappointed that we haven't took a strong stance on. But I'm sure they will see value in him still at the club. But I think that'll all be gone by the end of this year. I honestly don't see how he finishes the season as his first team starter. And in pre-season, he's nudged the ball around nice, especially in the was it in the first half of the Real Madrid game? He looked great, sitting deep and spraying it around, but it's not enough. I've watched Burton do that, I've watched Olayinka do that, I've been watching Willett do that, and then they bring other things to the party, which he doesn't. That's really sad. That I'm looking at 18, 19-year-olds and got weighing up their pros and cons against him, and like I say, he's got one pro for me, which is under no pressure. He can spray the ball around nice, and that's where the list ends. Whereas all the rest of them, I can start off with that pro and then list another 5 or 6. So yeah, I've gone on a bit too long about him, but yeah, just not a captain. He's going to be captain. I have no fucking doubt about that. But that just, to me, just screams more embarrassment about the state of the squad and where we're at, is that we're going to have Granit fucking Xhaka as a captain this year, and he's gonna drop a few clangers this year, and I'm gonna just sit back and laugh. As much as I don't want to, I hope he comes up trumps this year and puts in 8, 9 out of 10s every week and makes me shut my big fat mouth. But I know he's not gonna, because he just doesn't have it in him. Like I say, I wish he'd prove me wrong, but I just know he won't. But like I say, I'm open to it. Next one, Willock. Guys, I said to you at the start of last pre-season that he wasn't ready for me, and he had to go out on loan. He didn't. He stayed in and around the club. Didn't get a lot of game time, but he looks massively improved. And he's someone that's got a chance in this pre-season and took it with fucking 5 hands, never mind 2. And I think he does see that in this starting lineup, Xhaka is a weakness, and he is somebody that he could oust from the first team. Like I say, he has many more facets to his game than Xhaka does, and he can do what Xhaka does also, plus add other things. So, going off pre-season, he'd start next to me, next to Torreira, no two ways about it. I think he's earned it, as long as you don't get too carried away by pre-season. But he's someone for me that looks like he's filled out a lot and matured a lot over the last year. And I've been sort of looking at who went out on loan and who stayed at the club, getting minimum game time, but in and around the squad, and who got more value out of it, who improved more. And it's been a bit of a surprise to me that the 2 guys that stayed in and around the first team but didn't get much action look the 2 most ready this year. And it feels like just staying in and around the first team and learning nice methods has been a bigger bonus than actually going out on loan and playing week in, week out. And he's been the massive bright point for me, along with Eddie, of this pre-season. He's blown my mind a little bit. I've been really surprised at just having, and for me, he's looking like a Ramsey replacement that, although he might not have the, be quite the finished article Ramsey was, and within a season, I could easily see him outdoing Ramsey's numbers and being a much more versatile type of player. For me, Rambo, not great in defence, but really good adding to an attack, and turning up in the box at the right point. Willock seems to have the ability to help out in defence, then get up the other end and be the guy that the cutback comes to, and he's strolling into the box at the right time. 10 out of 10 for me this pre-season. He's been absolutely mind-blowingly good, and I'm really excited for him this year. He's not someone that, like I say, I thought he'd be part of the squad this year, but I didn't think he'd be knocking the door down as hard as he is for a first team starting position. And I think it's quite hard for Unai to ignore him now. I don't know how he goes about that really, because he's looked absolutely great for me, as I'm sure he has done for most of you. Then just the last of the midfielders, guys. Last but not least, Mesut Ozil. In one of the previous videos, guys, I said things come in threes, and we had Hector's hair, then we had Unai's teeth, and you guys asked me what did I think was the third one. And I said a Xhaka neck reduction, and I was wrong. It's Ozil. He's gone full Slim Shady, full Simon Phoenix. And it's one of those fashion statements. It was like when white boots first came out, and coloured boots and things, and it was like, well, if you're going to wear white boots, you better be a Don. And that's very similar with the top of your head. If you're going for the Guinness hairdo, you've got to be the man on the pitch, and I've been really impressed with him this pre-season. I wasn't expecting a ton out of him, but I think he's looked at the kids and the way last season went, and he just wants more for himself. Is this the way he wants his career to end, or come to its end, or near it? Just sitting on the bench playing once a month for Arsenal, is that really the way he should end his legacy? And let's get it right, he's leaving a legacy, the guy. As much as you might say he's been coasting the last 2 seasons, you can't deny how world class his CV is. It's stunning. One of the best number 10s he's ever been in football. If you look past the last couple of seasons, and I think with this hairdo now we're going to get an elite prime alpha Ozil season. I really do. I always say to people, he's someone that a lot of people had as number 1 who you've got to get rid of out the club. And I drew up my list of some Mkhitaryan, Mustafi, Xhaka, who I said were influential senior pros who need to go. But then I said Mesut was the last of those that I'd get rid of the other 3 first, and some of you questioned it, and wages, this, and I said it's not about that, guys. What you've got to look at is that Mesut Ozil, his wages will pretty much pay for themselves. They're a lot of money, but we'll offset those with his name. The other 3 don't have as big a draw as him. A lot of foreign kids and whatever will go out and get Ozil shirts. I don't see that a lot of kids wanting Xhaka, Mustafi and Mkhitaryan shirts, unless they're fellow countrymen. So he brings that to the party, and then what he also brings is he's been a world-class player. If we just get 80% of Mesut Ozil, it's better than what most people have. And the other guys, if they have never been world-class players, they're never going to be world-class players. So, like I say, there's much more value to keeping him than keeping a Mustafi or a Xhaka or a Mkhitaryan. And like I say, he's somebody that can be absolutely brilliant on his day. So if we're going to keep him, utilise him. It looks like we're going to go with this 3 up top, a fluid front 3, then Mesut sat in behind, and then 2 deeper sat midfielders. So, a midfield starting of Torreira, Guendouzi, Ozil, or Torreira, Willock, Ozil. That's what I would start the season with. I'm sure it probably will be Torreira, Xhaka, Ozil, but like I've told you guys, if that's the midfield we go through this season with, I don't expect any improvement whatsoever. We'll still leave ourselves open to teams just walking through the middle of the park, and it's why I say that position of Xhaka's is the biggest weakness in our first 11 as centre-back with Mustafi, and that's just my opinion. But I've seen plenty of evidence to suggest that I'm right on that one. People just go and look back at last season and just watch how easy it is for, not average teams, but, not world beater sides to just walk through. And, and it doesn't help our defence that they get no protection, or they've only got Torreira. Just somebody who's got 20% of the game's defensive could shore us up so much more in midfield. Xhaka has 0 of that. Just to go back to him, what I've noticed in this pre-season is he never really wins a 50-50. He bitches out, he pulls out, and that I can't stand in a player. I was always someone that'll, if I'm going in for a challenge, I'm putting 190% into it. If someone's coming out of this tackle getting hurt, it's you, not me. as much as I might hurt myself in it, I'll make sure you come off just as bad. And he doesn't. He pushes out. And they always tend to be the tackles where you do get hurt when you don't put everything in it. Not to get back onto him, but yeah, Ozil, new hair, looking, much improved. And I think he's realised, he's going to whimper out unless he pulls his finger out this year. And if he does have another shit season this season, I think a lot of his fanboys will run out of excuses for him. But he's looked lively. We all know there's a world-class player in there if he finds it. He's put the pressure on himself now with that hairdo, so I'm expecting a massive season from Mesut. That's that one. Wide players, let's get into this. Nelson, he's not been mind-blowing, has he, in pre-season, but he's very much like Chambers for me, where you can't judge him on the same basis as everybody else because he wasn't at the club last year. He's not worked with Unai yet. He had the injury patch last year. He's then been away with the England under-21s or whatever, so he's had a shorter pre-season than the rest of them. So he's someone that I will give, an extra few more weeks than everybody else to get up to speed and before I start expecting to see what I expect to see out of him. So I've been quite happy with what I've seen out of him and the little glimpses. And I'm sure there's people gone, well, Saka looks more ready, Martinelli looks more ready. Well, Martinelli's a tricky one because he's had even less time than Nelson, but he'll be playing on adrenaline at the moment, on the high of, coming to a massive club from where he's come from. Nelson for me will be the most first team ready. Like I say, he just needs to get up to speed. And although he's not been mind blowing this pre-season, for me there's much more value in watching him play than Mickey play, or he will be out wide. So he's someone that I can't wait to see more of this year, and I think we will. I think we'll see plenty of him, and I think he'll put in some show-stopping performances this year. Although you've not seen anything really in pre-season to suggest that. I think once this kid gets warm this year, I think we're in for a treat. I really do. Next up, our only one new signing, that's at the club playing so far and got any game time, Martinelli. Looks really lively. He looks a lot more pacey than I realised. I've only seen I only watched sort of 3 or 4 games of him last year when somebody mentioned that we were looking at signing him. And then the usual YouTube compilations, which didn't really blow me away, but I rated him much higher from watching clips of games than I did just a compilation on YouTube. I thought he looked much better, he was someone when we signed him. I thought, well, he'll just he'll go in the under-23s or we'll loan him out so he gets used to England. It looks like he's gonna be part of the first team. And him and Nelson, interchanging them as starting wingers or backup wingers are really exciting. And his work rate, he's someone, you can see this vision that Unai's got of hard-working players that, like I keep saying, everybody's got to contribute in defence and everybody contribute in attack, and we move as a full-flowing unit, in full unity. And he'd be a big part of that. And probably one thing he's got over Nelson is that he looks a bit more defensively assured and that he could do a bit more, whereas Nelson seems a bit more luxury player where he would, I'll create a lot in the attack but I'm not going to be able to help much in defence, and going off our defence, they're going to need as much support as possible to not get overwhelmed. So he's someone that, he's a different type of player to Nelson, but, a really lively option, and if we just utilise him in sort of Carabao, Europa League group games, and an impact sub out, I think we'll get some good turnout from him this year and some decent numbers. So yeah, another really bright point in this pre-season for me. Saka, this is a position where a lot of us have been moaning, and these young kids have stepped in and they all look really good. Saka for me, he's one that he looks like a kid amongst men at the minute. Very much how I saw Eddie and Willock at the start of last pre-season, where they look like kids still, built out of pipe cleaners and physically not up to it. But then you watch him play and you go, his physicality doesn't matter. He's got so many other really good attributes to his game that it's not going to come to a barging match for him and getting bullied off the ball. He's looked incredibly lively. And he's got a really good footballing brain. I know it's one of those really boring analogies and terms that people use, but he looks like Smith Rowe for me, looks like he wouldn't need to be lightning quick because he'll buy 2 yards with his brain. And Saka looks the same for me in tight little situations. He knows instinctively that little flick pass, the little dummy, he's got it all in the locker. And he's somebody that I really hope doesn't get loaned out. And again, we sort of use him, Nelson and Martinelli as backup wingers, and they get, you know, a good mixture of starts between them. You know, I would love to see a sort of Nelson, Saka, Nelson, Martinelli, Saka duo out wide of a three up top. You know, in Europa and Carabao, I would love to see that, and I really hope that happens. You know, and for his age, he's someone that has got a massive future, and I love that interview as well with him. You know, about how excited he was to tell his family and that he was getting a start, and the twinkle in his eye of just starting a pre-season game for Arsenal. You could see how much it means to him, and you know, that's the difference between some of our, you know, I don't want to sound crude, but senior pros who don't have any affinity towards the club, like they don't really care when the tools are down, whereas kids like this, he loves Arsenal and he's gonna play like a fan when we're going down. He's gonna go, this stings, you know what I mean? I want more for us than this, whereas some of the others just pack up tools. That's why I'm getting really excited about some of these kids, because I don't think they're gonna fold like a cheap suit. I think they're gonna dig in when it comes to the crunch, and that's a big positive for me. You know, over our senior pros. Talking to senior pros, next one, Mickey. He's been the massive disappointment for me in pre-season. I don't see Mustafi and Xhaka as a disappointment because I expected them to be shit, you know, or very average in pre-season, which they have been. But Mickey, for me, is someone that there is a good player in there, and he's just not finding it ever, and he's so frustrating. You know, the couple of games where he started, we've been building nice play, and then we're giving it to Mickey, and he's ruining it. And he's someone for me, like I say, the three most important players to get out of the club for me this year were Mustafi, Xhaka and Mickey. And if we'd have just replaced those three, I'd have said we would have got guaranteed for top four. We haven't. So, you know, we might still do, but I don't see any of those three leaving the club now, which I find really embarrassing, but I'm not going to get stuck on it. But yeah, he's been the most disappointing player for me in pre-season. I don't really want to go on, but he's got to really step it up, because he is someone, you know, whether we go out and buy a winger still or we just go with the kids, it will only take a couple of times where he'll bomb out and Unai will put a kid in and they'll really perform and he'll go, right, time for change. Very much like my comments on Xhaka, let's give the kid a go. It's a tricky one. Then we get to strikers, guys. Big Eddie, Woodway, my boy Eddie. You guys, you know, I was telling you last year that he should have been given more chances. He's more capable. You know, people laughed at me when I said, you know, if the club were entertaining the idea of Aubameyang going because of his age and, you know, the money that we could get, and I said Eddie will be right for stepping in when Laka doesn't play, and a lot of you laughed and went, he's not going to get 30 goals. He's like I said to you guys, he doesn't need to get 30 goals. If he gets 10 and some of the other young lads chip in with 5 to 10 goals and we spread out the goals around the team more, we don't need one out and out striker to score 30 goals. We need more of a contribution. We relied too heavily on Aubameyang and Lacazette, and although it's great that they're scoring that high volume of goals and contributions, we need everybody else chipping in a bit. We need even more. You know, we didn't struggle for goals last year, but it was just relying purely on those two. No one else really chipped in. Whereas I think if all these kids get a goal this year, you know, I could see Nelson getting up to 10 goals and assists. I could see Martinelli getting up to 10 goals and assists. I see Saka getting up to 10 goals and assists. Eddie I could see getting up to 10 goals and assists. Willock I could see getting up to 10 goals and assists. You know, these loads of ways to start spreading out that load, which is what I believe we need to do. So, you know, if the worst case scenario and Laka and Oba both got injured, we're fucked because we don't have anyone else who can score goals. Now we do. You know, we can spread it out a little bit more. And I'm really excited for Eddie, and you know, very like my comments for Willock. He's someone that's gone, there's chances for me in this side. You know, maybe he's looking and going, Aubameyang will only be here this season again, and then we'll look to sell him next year. You know, I don't see us keeping him till his contract runs out. I think we will try and cash in once we've got what we want out of him. And for me, that'd be landing Champions League. I think if we landed Champions League, we'd look to sell him or maybe give him one last year. But I think Eddie's looking and going, that's my opportunity. As soon as this guy leaves, I want to be the guy that steps straight in his shoes. And I think he's going to be more than capable when that time comes around, given the rate of his growth. Like I say, very similar to Willock, he's took his chance with 5 hands, not 2. And, you know, he's really asking the question of Unai, and, you know, I deserve to be in the rotation with these two. You know, obviously on name, he's not going to start over them, but he definitely deserves a chance. You know, in the Europa and the Carabao Cup games early doors, he definitely deserves a chance. And like I say, along with Willock, he was someone that I was disappointed for him. That I was proud of him that he took one for the team last year and knew, you know, once Welbeck got injured that his loan move wasn't happening. And you know, he will have been told, look, you're gonna be third choice, and you know you might get 5 games this year. We're sorry, but we need you to do it, and he did it. You know, and I will always rate anyone who puts their own career below the need of the club. He earns massive brownie points for me for that. So he did his time served last year. So for me now this year, you know, very much like I said about Ainsley, he deserves some payback. You know, and love firing back in his direction. I'm really excited for him, and I think he, you know, like I say, he's given sort of 10 to 20 appearances this year. I do think he'll score 5 to 10 goals. He's got such good instincts, and when I watch him play, just his work rate, the way he goes about it, he screams Ian Wright to me. He screams righty. Jermaine Defoe, he's that type of striker for me. Does a lot of shitty work. Very much like Lacazette, he does a lot of work that you don't give him credit for. And you know, even in games where he's not scoring the goals, he's still carving out chances and doing good work. You know, like in the game where he was scoring goals and then he put through that beautiful through ball for Saka. That was just, you know, Mesut Ozil-esque past that. I didn't think he'd have that in his locker. So maybe he could be a play off the wing as part of a fluid front three where they all interchange. I don't know, but big things for me for Eddie. I'm really excited for him, I really am. Laka, the main man, let's get on to him. Like, he's just a caramel beauty. I just love the man. I've got all the time in the world for him. For me, he should be a captain this year just because he leads by example. He puts a shift in every game, even if his work doesn't come up trumps. He's giving it everything. And you know, I just love the way he put the goals on a plate for the kids in the Fiorentina game. You know, he could have been head down and bury it, and it's very much like the circle of life for me, and you know, pay it forward. And very much he's took example from the Aubameyang letting him have that penalty when his confidence was low, and then what he gained from it. And I felt he very much has done that, where he doesn't need to gain confidence from scoring goals. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. His numbers show that. And I think he saw more value in, I'll set one of these kids up to score. You know, that feeling, he'll know what that felt like as a young kid coming into a starting team where you get a chance and you get a goal. You know, and he's looking at these kids and going, you know, Nketiah, Willock, you know, that feeling that they'll be getting a senior goal, you know. Just what a team player, what a guy. I've just got so much love for him, and he's one of the only senior pros that I'd be devastated if he left. You know, I've not felt an affinity towards players for a long time, and he's someone that I do, and I'm right behind. And I think we're going to get a massive season from him this year, really do. You know, and although he might not get the goal scoring numbers of Aubameyang, the stuff that he does in and around goals is way more important for me. You know, look at how much build up, winning the ball back he's involved in, then setting it, the move up, getting it going. He's class, proper world class striker. Oba, yowzers, man, this guy's looked on it pre-season. Like I say, I know it's pre-season, you can't get too overexcited, but fuck me, he's been on fire, hasn't he? And I've found it really interesting that he started him off the right. Like, you know, I've kept saying this fluid front three of where it doesn't sort of matter where you start, you can just take it in turns to interchange as long as someone's covering each of the positions. You know, a lot of people had a problem with him playing wide last year, saying, oh, it's a waste. And it's not a waste, guys. He will still get in the same positions and still score the same amount of goals, whether he plays down the middle or off the right for me. You know, it works perfectly where he seems to be coming in the box off the wing, as, you know, a Kolasinac's bringing it in off the other side, or Iwobi is then dropping it right across the box. He's the one naturally coming in at the back post. So I don't see it affecting his numbers really at all. I don't expect to see a massive dip in his numbers goal-wise at all. You know, and if we can utilise him there, and then we have Eddie just as a backup to Laka, and then we can get in another winger, and you have a front three, you know, of a Nicolas Pepe or Zaha and Everton Suarez, Laka Oba, that, you know, with Mesut in behind, that fucking really mouth-watering lip. That's it, really, you know, I'm salivating over that for next year. And I think the club are going to go and do it, but I'm not too upset if they don't. You know, seeing Martinelli in that three, or Nketiah or Nelson or Saka, I think we'll do well out of. So, real excitement for me. And last but not least, John Jules. He's again somebody who I don't think is going to be looked at for the first team this year, and it was just an experience thing of getting him in there. He's another one that's really exciting me. Physically, he's really impressed me. He's not looking like he's going to get the ball like a kid. And he's another one for me that I put in the same bracket as Smith Rowe and Saka. His footballing brain has really impressed me. His runs, his timing of his runs, his timing of his passes, his identification of a pass. In another year's time, I think this lad's going to be a massive part of the first team setup, and he's someone that we've got to. I'm looking at when Oba goes, and then I look at sort of, what we're left with, which will be Laka, Eddie, John Jules, and probably Balogun at that point, in another 1, 2, 3 seasons' time. And I think that's really, really strong and exciting. And like I say, John Jules, I think he's got a massive future at the club. I really do. I don't want to get too hyped over all these kids, but from what I've seen this pre-season, Willock, Burton, Olayinka, Willock, I've just said Willock twice, but those guys, Martinelli, Nelson, Saka, John Jules, Nketiah, and then Smith Rowe, depending on what's happened with, got massive, massive futures, and I think we could do a lot worse than, the kids are alright, aren't they, guys? I think we could do a lot worse than lean on Project Youth at the moment. And although I don't think we should be relying on them week in and week out, I think using them, in bit parts, I think will come up massively for us. This pre-season to me has sort of been, youth 1, senior pros 0 for me. They've been really exciting and really enjoyable to watch, and that's how I felt. There's not many games that I get excited for anymore. And like I say, that Colorado Rapids game, when I saw the lineup, I felt like a warmth and an excitement, and I was like, yes! Even if we get beat 6-0, I'm going to enjoy watching these kids play. And I don't feel that way about a lot of the senior pros. Because you get that underlying feeling of you just know you're going to end up disappointed at some point. You get that ill feeling. You don't have much expectation or hope of something different. Whereas with these kids, you just don't quite know what you're going to get. And that's exciting for me. I love change. It's just, it's been the real highlight of pre-season. I am way more optimistic than I thought it was going to be. But I can't get away from the fact that there's still certain things that we need, but I will talk about them in the other video. So that's my catch-up, guys, on everyone that's had a run out this pre-season. Hope you've enjoyed. I would love your guys' thoughts on, where you think, who's impressed you, who hasn't impressed you, who you think should start, who you don't think should start. I love your thoughts, guys. And that's it from me, and I'll be seeing you soon on the next video, guys. Once again, thanks for all the love, the subscriptions. I've noticed my numbers have gone up a little bit again. I really want to get us to 75 subs for the start of the season. I really love that, and it means the world to me. So if you haven't subscribed already and you made it to the end, please do. Give us a thumbs up, comment if you've got anything you want me to talk about. Have a lovely Saturday. Enjoy. Si signing out.